Warning, this podcast has stories of real-life events and true crime that happens every day. These stories may contain adult language and graphic or disturbing details not suitable for everyone. Listener discretion is advised.
132 in Bush, I've got him at gunpoint. Check your left phone for calling a full evacuation at this time.
They're pulling them out.
911, advise ready for camp.
God!
Welcome to another episode of War Stories. I'm Chuck. Tom is not with us today, but we have someone else. We have Doc.
What's up?
What's up,
man?
Doc?
So we had Doc. Doc's a former guest of ours. He was on. There's a Marine called Doc on Instagram. He's helping me out today because Tom is doing his thespian stuff for his play. Spam a lot over there in Idaho. So he's doing all that. And unfortunately, he can't make it today. So it's all right. We got Doc. And then we have Nico. Nico was on our podcast originally, came on, talked about his nonprofit that he started in a couple stories. And he said he wanted to come back on the show and bring a friend. So who do you have for us, Nico?
Yeah, I got Blue, an old mate of mine who I went through pretty much my entire journey in the SAS with, literally selection together.
Yeah, g'day guys. So Luke Andrews, or as Nico alluded to, Blue, because I have red hair, checks out, Australian humour. And Nico and I were the two youngest guys on our intake for SAS selection, or Australian SAS selection back in 2009. So we've been thick as thieves ever since then. So yeah, mate, thanks very much for having us on your podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you guys for joining, and thank you, Nico, for coming back on again and bringing your buddy. So you guys were in the Special Forces together, or the SAS in Australia, correct?
Yeah,
that's right.
Now, Blue, we've asked Nico this question, but how did you get into the military? Like, what drove you to it, and what drove you specifically to SAS?
Yeah, mate. So my story is kind of the quintessential. Wannabe SF guy. So I grew up in a military family. Being soldiering runs in my blood. So I've got my father's grandfather landed on the beaches of Gallipoli. There's a real big day every year in Australia we commemorate, which is called Anzac Day. It's kind of your like a version of your Veterans Day. So I've got that connection to Anzac Day. I've got my father was a sergeant major in engineers. So my childhood was making my bed, getting the ruler out and all this sort of stuff. So, mate, pretty much that's all I knew. And by the time I was in school, most of my mates had pictures of females and stuff up on the wall. I did have that, but I had mainly SF guys jumping out of planes and stuff. So, mate, there was only one way I was going, and you could call it a military nerd. So, did Army cadets and all that sort of stuff. Still don't live that down. But I was into the Army, man, from right from say 6 years old. I knew I wanted to join the Army, and ended up in the infantry, and sort of ended up. I was always just buying my time, saying, right, when can I do selection? So
wow.
So
all his army photos and posters were all pretty weird, right? Because most of the guys were. They were in underwear, but a little bit.
They weren't in the Army. They were just doing physical training, right? So that's
with each other. It's pretty intimate.
We don't. They don't.
He had the sexy calendar from the Australian military, dude.
Yeah, that's hard to tell because they had nothing on. You just kind of I guess they're army blokes. They're into this.
But their eyes were blacked out, so that's what made them SF. So it's not gay. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yes.
Well, you said you got
I think you said
from where? Where can we find those?
We'll send the link later in the notes below, right?
For anyone who's curious, or any kids who want to be inspired,
That's funny, Chuck, because I'd always grown up thinking, or saying to myself, I'm going to do selection, and then when I did it and when I finished it, it was super confusing because I'd never thought past that. So it's kind of like, I did select, they're like, oh, congratulations, when the commanding officer comes out and said everyone's successful, blah, blah, blah.
That was fucking awesome.
It was, we can talk about that in a minute. It was kind of weird because I had this massive sense of not an anticlimax, but a sort of like, okay, so I did it. What next? And obviously, what ensued was another year of getting qualified, which was just as hard. But yeah, it was an interesting feeling, probably a similar feeling to, when you leave the military, you kind of like, what next? Sort of an introduction to that, I guess. But probably a common.
And you're like, fuck, I wanted to do this time, and now what do I do? Like, where do I go from here? Type of thing.
Yeah. And I kind of expected, I don't know why, but you always, probably like in the United States, there's a huge, how many podcasts and books and movies are there about special forces, right? Like when you actually do it, you're kind of thinking, did I do that? You kind of think like, I wouldn't be capable of that. And when you achieve it, you're kind of like, fuck, am I dreaming or did I do that?
Did that just happen?
Was it harder than you thought? Or easier?
No, way harder.
No, they wanted to. They were hell bent on making it the hardest thing. Like this one instructor, it would become a pissing competition, like a huge dick measuring competition between the senior instructor running it at the unit. So they get like two years, then it passes off to the next senior instructor. And as they kept going, it got to a point where it was a huge dick measuring competition to see how hard they could make it. Like they still had to do the framework, but they would just stretch it out that much harder.
So for selection for the Australian SAS, I guess American listeners might not be super savvy with it, but it's a 3-week or 21-day course, and it's got different modules. So it starts off with what you'd expect on selection. Your smash sessions where you obviously limited food, limited sleep, stuff that you'd expect. And then there's an individual phase we call Happy Wanderer, where it's up to you. Basically, you're on your own for 3 days. You're moving through the bush, achieving navigational checkpoints. And then the last 5 days, the running joke in the SAS is that selection starts on Lucky Dip, and that Lucky Dip is the last 5 days. And that's essentially just a slug session where you go,
no food, no sleep.
Yeah, exactly right. So you're already, you've gone 2.5 weeks. You've sort of been broken down, and then that's where it really starts. Where people are pulling out or getting injured. So we started with around, I think it was a bit over 150, and we ended up with 23 in the end. And that's to start a year-long training. And we lost probably 5 of those guys on the way. So I think we graduated a year and a few months later with 15 or 16 guys. So, and that's about what you'd expect every year. That's about the attrition rate. So, we
were pushing close to about 300. They just dropped off so fucking quick at the start that it appeared like it was 150. It was much higher numbers at the start.
Was it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But I mean,
did you guys do any like crazy swimming? I know that Recon and MARSOC dudes and Navy SEALs, they all do like heavy swimming in their like Buds or Hell Week or whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's funny because in the United States, right, you guys have got so many different units that have different, that are assigned with different ORBATs or different capabilities. Where in Australia we've got SASR, our unit, and we've got the commandos. So we kind of share all the capabilities. So we're not explicitly hostage rescue like some of your units, or we're not explicitly marine. We kind of capture, like we I guess our ORBAT is to do all of those. So we're not super heavy. We're kind of the jack of all trades, master of none, if you will. So there's not a great deal of swimming. There's not. I mean, on selection, what did we do? We just had an open water. We had a bit of a swim in the ocean. That's about it. So
they just wanted to know you could swim intensely. So they just like, all right, full clothes, uniform, boots, all that shit. And they made us go on the freezing cold surf.
Right. It's not like the American military.
Yeah.
Where they're like, here, go fucking drown yourself with a brick.
That's right. It's like it's all right. We got a medic on standby. You guys don't worry about it.
I could be honest though, I did almost fucking drown. Like they made us, because the strange surf is like proper Pacific surf, right? And it's where it's off the coast of us is where the sharks are. So they made us swim out there in the winter. Super cold. Past the surf in all your clothes and boots. Yeah. And then swim parallel to the beach for a while. Right, and then for like half a kilometer and then come back through the surf. I just remember hitting the water. Like it was basically an ice bath. just, if it wasn't syrup, it'd be frozen. And then, I just remember my chest collapsing and just going, well, I'm either going to drown or do this. But, that was like, one of a great many. I'm either going to die or do it circumstances, I think, on selection.
Wow, dude, that's intense. Jesus. So you wanted to be special forces basically since you were a kid. Got into special forces. You're like, holy shit, I just did it. And then you went on to your unit, and that's when you met Nico, or?
Well, we'd met a few times. We were both from the infantry, so we'd sort of had mutual friends. I mean, the Australian Army's not a huge fraternity. Classes mates. We were happy to be.
We're good.
We're good.
We're good.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I'll start that again. Yeah, so we did know each other, but we weren't super close. We became closer, I guess, from selection. And when we were in the same team on. Like I mentioned Lucky Dip earlier. So Nico and I were both in the same team on Lucky Dip, and you really only got, what's that, about 8 or 9 guys in your team for that, and you obviously teamwork's obviously big in the Army, but obviously more so in a special force environment. And
everyone took turns at leaders. There's no like the officers or like NCOs or whatever going to be charged. It's like, no, everyone's equal level, and everyone takes turn at leadership because like they don't want you if you're incapable of being a follower and incapable of being a leader, they don't want you. And then also if you're incapable of operating as an individual autonomously, they don't want you either. Right. Like you need to be able to make all these decisions from any level and fall into that line, right? Exactly. So we're in the same team doing that. And then I think it wasn't until like, it was kind of just, I think it was 5 days without food and sleep. And they just kind of put you to work like an animal for those 5 days. Like for at least 12, 13 hours a day, you're carrying more than your own body weight. Just to like break you, and then they keep you up all night, like harassing you while you dig a hole, or you dig a swimming pool with a knife. This bullshit, right? But they decided to extend it, like sneak in an extra day there. Remember the night before, they decided they like stretch it. They gave us like a quarter of a cup of rice, and like hoping you'd get more, and then that was it. So
actually, the first meal that we had, it was 5 days with limited food because we did get a meal on the 3rd day, and the meal was a tray. And it had these farm worms, like basically like farm maggots,
Maggots.
It had sheep's heart, sheep's brain,
riddled with maggots.
But like, and so obviously, people see the movies, they hear the podcast, but everything, as you gentlemen know, everything we do in the military, particularly on a selection course, there's a massive reason behind, the why. There's a big why, and you could choose anything on a selection course and say, well, why do we do that? But this particular, if you're working with, say, an Indigenous force and you're running that to, some sort of proxy warfare, sort of whatever you want to call it, right? You got to be able to, someone puts some food in front of your face, you're not going to say no, especially if you're hungry. So it's just an interesting thing to see. I remember one of the boys. We
all got ass piss.
I've never seen a guy so excited. Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, everyone got pretty quick, but I remember we were all sitting around like hooking into all these hearts and brains, and guys picking out bits of food. And one of the guys, I don't know why, it was such a surreal moment, but he got super excited, like a kid in a candy store. Right? He's like, oh, a heart. It's like he's like scooping through all the lollies, and he's found like his favorite lolly. He's like, and he grabs like an apple, and he bites into it, and all the blood just runs down his face. But he was like happy as a pig in shit. He was super stoked. He's like, a heart. Picks it up, takes this big bite. And, when you haven't eaten in that long, it's almost like as soon as you swallow, you feel the nutrients going back through your body, and you're like a bloody iPhone battery. You're like, you feel that gusto. You kind of get your energy back. So it's pretty interesting. But
I remember scooping handfuls of maggots at the bottom. I realized the maggots didn't have a taste. And it's like, man, I just eat handfuls of maggots. But it was like the joke was on us. The cooks had like undercooked. So like you kind of have to eat it so that they'll know that you'll eat in those circumstances. But the cooks undercooked, just everyone got ass piss and vomited. And I remember it just being, gosh. I remember I couldn't sit down because I was holding my ass was as tight as a fucking nun. And I'm like, all I needed to do was just keep it so tight and clench it It's like I was carrying like mortars and shit and like rounds and all this crap, and I was just through my pack as well as everything else and water jerrys. I'm like, they're like, Nick, take a minute break. I'm like, not a fucking chance. If I sit down, I'm like shitting all through my pants, and I've still got I don't know how many more days I've got left before I'm like still wearing these cams. So anyway,
Wow.
that's why it didn't work out great for everyone, but we all got ass pissed and vomited. And
But
So you're going through basically a SEER school at this point.
Yeah.
And you are not only eating organ meat that's rotten and undercooked and maggots, and now they've given you basically dysentery, and now you're shitting yourselves through your uniform and not knowing how many days you have left.
it's the end of selection, and they've got one instructor per person, one senior member of the unit per person.
Wow.
With a notebook and pen, staring at you from somewhere between a foot, 5 foot, 10 foot away, just taking notes on every single fucking one of these. It's only then that they really start intricately studying each person on such a minute individual level. They want to see how selfish you are, how jack you are, how competent you are as a leader, how stressed you get. Like, and they're watching you like a fine-tooth comb, whether they want you next to them to rely on you at any level in their team, in their troop, in their squadron, whatever the hell it is for whatever circumstance, or as an individual.
So I guess the amount of scrutiny that's put on you, you don't realise at the time, right? When you're just a dude from the infantry or whatever unit you came from, you turn up, you know, having a shot at the big league, right? Everyone's trying to get into the SAS, so you just put your best foot forward. But it's not until, you know, Nico's worked on selection as well. A few years later, when we qualified, we come back to do the same thing. We're that person now following the new guys, and it's not until then when, especially, you know, when you look at the piece of paper that you're marking them off, man, the amount of scrutiny, like there's nothing, I can't think of another organisation that scrutinises people so heavily. I mean, you're talking about
you're not allowed to.
You're making notes
most
about
of the information you're noting is negative. Like you're looking for negative shit. So at the end of the day, it's like, and then if you can think of highlights, and you see, it could be fair, but you're writing them as like special notes.
I agree. And it's funny because, you know, there's all these self-help podcasts out there, and, you know, if you chuck on Instagram, everyone's talking, you know, what pops up, resilience. Everyone wants to be, how do I become more resilient, you know, and this and that. But one word that I think is really not explored enough, which should be exploited, you know, to the nth degree, is resolve, right? Because, you know, just to have resolve when obviously when the chips are down, and think about what selection is. It's seeing, you know, it's emulating conditions that a special forces unit might need to conduct. You know, how do you emulate that without hurting people, right? You run a selection, you make it super hard, you give them heavy shit to carry, and you see how they go. And that's, you know, what's your resolve like? And it's funny because at the start of selection, day one, we stripped naked, right? And there was however many of us there, and we're all standing there, and they bring females in to kind of.
This was his specialty, right? Because if you've seen those posters,
they bring females in. Let's see who gets the fucking part on.
So ready. Like the moment he'd been waiting for, his whole military career came to this moment.
They're like, you don't need to get naked yet. What are you
They're
doing?
like, why are you wrestling that guy? You're like, mate, get your junk out of your mouth.
But it's funny, right? You look around and you see all these units, all these dudes that come from the infantry. They're super jacked, and you're like, man, I was like fucking 60 kilos wringing wet, you know. And you're looking around, you're like, fucking hell, mate. Look at the size of these dudes. I got no chance. And then, you know, it's a good life lesson because, you know, my father always used to say, never judge a book by its cover. And guys that you would like, if you got some dudes in that room, you go, all right, put $1,000 on the top 5 guys or whatever, you know, it's just a funny lesson in human dynamics. And
at the end of the day, we all talked about at the end, the guys who got through, got selected, and were going through the Rio. We're like, you look at them, you're like, they were not the specimens in any capacity. Those guys actually, like day 3, day 5, they were gone so early because once they had their perfect diet or sleep and everything taken from them, their capability to operate and perform was not there. They self-selected to quit. They didn't even get injured. That was the interesting part. The people at the end just truly wanted it more than everyone else. And that's a differentiating factor.
And I think, you know, there's metrics for everything in the world, right? Like you go to the business world, corporate world, or, you know, there's there's in terms of, say, physicality, there's tests, intellect, there's tests, IQ, or whatever you want to do, but there's no desire test, right? Like, how much do you want something? Like, I was not the fittest dude I was probably one of the unfittest dudes. I was But mate, I was burning hot. Like I told you guys how much I wanted it.
What's an American saying? You have heart, so like you had a lot of heart.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we say the same thing, right? Yeah.
Ticker.
Bit of ticker. So you know, it's
yeah.
it's not rocket science, man. It's like
No.
if you want to be whatever in this world and you dedicate that much energy, you're going to get it. And at that stage in our life, we wanted, I wanted to be in the SAS, and that's what I focused my energy on, and we did it, and it was a moment in time. So.
It's crazy how like you go into it and you're like, wow, this is super hard, and then you make it. And so when I was in the Marine Corps, and I was talking to a staff sergeant. He was a MARSOC, or he became a raider, a MARSOC raider, shortly thereafter. But he went through, I guess, selections with MARSOC, and he made it all the way through. And then he was in the schooling portion, like after your selections, and he was in that whole year-long thing. And he said he ended up having to get medically, I guess, separated from that training because he like tore out his whole knee. But they said they like, hey, we'll let you start back where you left off and go back through that full evolution because he's already going through the schools portion.
Yeah.
And he said this shit was like Jason Bourne stuff, where like they put out like EPBs and shit on you, and you have to like escape and evade in actual towns and cities with civilian population and stuff. If you guys can talk about it, did you guys do anything similar to those?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. Yeah, so I guess we've spoken about our selection, and you can probably go around the world and choose a country's top special forces unit, and you're probably going to find that the selection process is similar, right?
Right.
And I guess it's if you fast forward after that, I mentioned it took us about a bit over 12 months to get qualified. And if you fail any of those courses that we call, I guess, the mandatory courses to get qualified, it's going to take another 12 months until that course comes around again to get qualified. So in some instances, it takes guys, 2.5 years is probably the maximum to get qualified. So, and any variation of that. So the mentality is, if you've done selection, you're the prototype that we want. We're going to look after you after that, get you qualified, and then you're a qualified.
I actually think there was 3 stages, right? They've got some tiers in there. They've got their selection, which at the end of our selection, usually you just do 23 days. And to show how intense it is for 23 days, I didn't brush my teeth, so I had an extra minute or 2 of sleep.
You don't do that anyway.
Yeah, fuck it. Brush your teeth, fucking cowards.
You got a bit of British in you, don't you?
Cowards. So anyway, I didn't brush my teeth because some nights we're getting 30 minutes. Some nights it was you might get an hour or 2 hours, but I don't think we probably didn't get more than 3 hours, right? Unless it was a solo journey where you were left alone with yourself to attack your own mind in the evenings and whatever for 5 days or 3 days or whatever it was. They do a bit of that to see how you operate individually. But at the end of selection, this guy, the head guy running our selection, as he peaked out on his dick measuring competition from the years before, he thought it'd be a great idea to throw resistance to interrogation, which was 4 years of 4 days of straight of interrogation at the end of it. So not only did we do 23 days, but then we did 96 hours immediately after losing 15 kilograms, which is 33 or 4 pounds or some shit, just 34 pounds maybe, something like that. So we'd lost that over the course of 3 weeks, and then they threw us into 96 hours at the end of it. So that's another 96 hours of not eating and not sleeping. So they said they'd never do this again because we were hallucinating and just shit in their pants,
right?
Themselves and whatever. It was, they couldn't hold themselves up. Chaos and bleeding. It was hemorrhoids. It was just a circus, But it was they managed to draw it out. And then at the end of that, it's well, whoever's standing, right now they select from those people. So what was 23 days, 27 days. And then it was we were so fucked at the end of it. We couldn't cock a pistol. They're trying to throw us back into training. And we actually couldn't cock a pistol. Dudes are screaming in their sleep and shit. Everyone was shitting their pants in the hallway and stuff. No one could get to the toilet on time. It's pretty funny. Looking back on it, not as funny.
Still fun.
It's still fun. And it's so we did that. And then it has the That started in July. So at the end of July, we're kind of maybe August sometime. Then to August to the end of December. There is no like weekends. You're just fucking going on training constantly to the end of the year, to the end of December. And then, and it's like, and it's this, then it's jungle warfare training. They never handed back anything from Vietnam in our unit, no skill set. They never lost it. They kept, which in the Vietnam, our unit was known as Phantoms of the Jungle, right? By the Viet Cong and the Vietnamese, like terrified. And we are definitely, as far as ego goes, we fucking in the jungle, like proper bush ninjas, jungle ninjas. It is fucking out of control. Like we are meticulously slow and detailed. So we do that. We went straight to that. We're doing weapons training. We're doing everything. But we're expected to do this from one starvation and fatigue period to the next. Like straight out, we're trying to do weapons training. We can't even cock fucking pistols because our hands are too weak. Like it's like we don't have the dexterity and the strength in our hands to cock pistols, and they already got us training on weapons and shit. It was a circus. It was like one giant fuck show of a challenge to the next. But as I'm getting full circle here, we did that. Then we did this, survival course for 3 weeks, which had an epic amount of elements, just like the MARSOC guy was talking about. And we're in the desert, we're in cities, we're on the run, dogs chasing us, all this shit. And then it was it was demolitions. It's all this shit up until para stuff. And it's one thing to the next. So the next 6 months, essentially, or 5 months, were his own survival fucking course to stay in the unit. So you didn't get kicked out for failing or not being able to keep up or being too fatigued or being broken or being injured or not being competent enough from like a mental competence level to be able to keep up with everyone else. Because, however.
So I got a question then. What was I got two questions. One, what was the best thing that you ever, the funniest thing that ever happened during selections or that whole year-long process to become SAS? And what was the hardest?
I can talk. I've got a funny story. I'd love to tell it, and then hardest, we'll think about that one, right? But so Nico's kind of talking about, the continuation of our training. So one, you'll finish a course on we'd finish, say, the roping course on a Friday, have the weekend off, and on Monday we're straight into, demolitions or fast driving or, heavy weapons, whatever it was. But I did talk about this on another podcast I did, but I love telling it. It's worth telling again. So we start our demolitions course, right? And we're all out of range and we're pretty fatigued because we've been bouncing through all these courses. And we had this engineer dude, and he's like, yeah, guys, so what we're going to go on with now is how to, get rid of, if you're in another country and you need to fucking get rid of ammo, you just blow it in place, right? And we're like, yeah, cool. Sounds cool. So we're out at the demolitions range. And there's this huge hole dug in the ground, and it's full of ammo, man. It's got right down the bottom is the real heavy stuff, like your 30 mil cannon, and then it goes, 7.62, 5.56, 9 mil, and sorry, there was 50 cal in there as well. So he's pouring, was it Kero or something?
Dude, he had 40 mil. He had some big shit in there.
Yeah, was it 40 mil?
Yeah,
it was like everything, man, and it was all old ammo, right? And he's like, yeah, guys, the safety distance for this is 300 meters, and we're like. And we're like, yes, it seems legit. And it's not just us. There's about 30 of us, all trainees, right? And all our instructors, the head instructor, everyone. Because this guy's like a specialist. He's from engineers, and he's a demolitions dude.
We're all kind of sitting around like,
we're just sitting around, man.
We're trainees.
Dudes are fucking smoking.
Our instructors from the unit are like, that's fine.
Dudes are smoking cigarettes, sitting on water jerrys and shit. And he's like, so he pours, was it fucking pours petrol or something, and he lights it.
Gasoline. He pours gasoline all over.
And so, and all the 9 mil on top starts going off, and we're like, yeah, this is cool. The 5.56 starts going off, and he's trying to talk to us. He's like, yeah, guys, so blah blah blah, and then kind of gets a bit bored. It's a bit boring. It's a bit boring. No, it hasn't got to that yet. It's a bit boring. We're like, yeah, cool. And it's coming up to lunch, and we're like, fuck, man, let's go get a feed. And then you kind of hear a few zings, and we're like, oh, that's a bit weird. And obviously the projectile in this instance isn't the thing flying through the air. The gunpowder's going off and the shell's flying through the air. So we start hearing a few zigs, and then we kind of think, and I remember thinking, fuck, this is getting a bit hectic. But it's like that pack mentality when all the dudes are together. No one wants to be a pussy, right? So no one's doing anything. And one of our mates, Skeet, big Skeet, right? He's sitting on a water jerry. and you hear this ting, and it just like it's an empty Jerry. So you hear the thud of it, and it just misses his balls, just hits right under, and then you just hear this run, and everyone's fucking cutting human swastikas across the demolitions range, and then the big stuff starts going up. It's like,
whoa, 40 mil on fire over our fucking heads.
and
Oh,
fucking
shit.
We're running to a bunker up the hill because it's a demolitions range, right? Bunker up the hill, and it's flying over past the fucking bunker.
Oh shit!
Mate,
And there's a fuel
there's
dump
a
up
fuel
there.
dump up the
There's
top,
a fuel
right?
dump up there as well.
And so
Holy
and
shit.
at the demolitions range, there's all these massive gum trees, right? These eucalypt trees, and all these fucking branches are getting shredded by all these round, like obviously not the round, but the shells flying through the air. And I was taking cover, like we're trying to basically like maneuver back to the entrance of the demolition shelter, right? And I was hiding behind this big tree with one of our instructors, and he got shot in the arm like a year earlier. And he's like, "Fuck that! I'm not getting shot again." And he's fucking taking kind of like maneuver behind cover to fucking get back to
But
this.
it was so funny because all the fucking like guys got trainees going through the
We're all like,
reinforcement cycle. We're all sitting there at the front, and we're trying to just like, oh yeah, this is totally cool. Like, no big deal. We're hearing things and
yeah,
shit.
this is normal.
And then it was like, and the assistant instructors and instructors
Fucking
were
running,
fucking
man.
sprinting up the hill. It was like, that's the moment. It's like, I was like, fucking run.
Right, yeah. So
Wow.
this engineer dude,
And it
man,
kept going. We got to the bunker and it kept escalating, by the way, like proper escalation. It was it's like no one had ever tested what they decided to do to dispose of ammunition before.
So anyway, I call bullshit on the 300-meter safety rule, but anyway, I'm not an expert. But
For us, so funny thing is Doc and I used to have the same MOS and the same job in the Marine Corps. I don't know. Did you ever operate on the Mark 154, the Miklix?
No, I never did. I've seen it operate. I was never on it. I was always on a P7 or the C7 and whatnot.
Oh,
But yeah,
so
Your mic's
Yeah.
a bit soft too, Doc, but that could be us not hearing it.
no, it's I think it's
How's
his
that?
mic. Yeah,
Okay.
better. Can you go up a little more?
up a little more.
Yep.
I can go up all day. I don't know if you know that.
Cool.
Yeah,
There we go.
fucking sick.
So
That elephant ain't got nothing on you, man. You fucking take that.
So I was on that vehicle. So I had I was a Mark 154 Miklik crew chief basically, and it basically carried 3 rockets on it with 3 tubs of C4, 1,750 pounds each tub of C4, and it would shoot out. And at our range that we launched that thing at, we only had 150 meters of tow rope basically in front of us with the deck cord, and then all the C4 like daisy chained to blow up minefields. And where we were standing watching this shit was a mile away.
yeah, right. Fuck.
And when that thing went off, you would be in the vehicle and you'd feel the vehicle rock, and you're like, "Huh, that was it." When you're up there on like a mile away, dude, that shockwave hits you right in the chest.
Oh man, yeah.
So I could only imagine you're blowing up artillery or fucking a bunch of different rounds, 300 meters or 300 feet or
Yeah, well, there was no
close.
artillery rounds. It was all just like rounds, right? I think, like
Okay.
I said, the whole thing was there 40 mil maybe? Was that? I
No,
didn't realize, but
no,
there was
no,
definitely-
not a couple. Because I was a bit over eager to help this guy.
Oh, were you helping? him?
Fuck, yeah, I was helping him.
Fuck,
I
there
was a
you
bit
go.
over eager to pour
didn't
the
know that.
ammunitions into the fucking hole. It was an insane amount of weaponry, like an insane. Like it was like there was a small war amount of ammunition in there that we could have trained with. Or could have, like you couldn't train with that with a battalion and get rid of it in a day with everyone fucking firing. It was an awful lot. Yeah.
So that, and I think, like, as you guys know, in the military, right? Like, fuck, how many funny stories do you have? It's like, where do I start? So, I guess I want to make a point. When the Australian SAS, when we do the research, when you're an infantry soldier getting ready to do selection, we have 10 pillars, I guess, or tenets of, that the unit sort of advertised to say, well, this is our 10 attributes. That's the word I was looking for. And one of them you know, you got like relentless pursuit for excellence and all these other ones. I've forgotten a few now, but one of them is a sense of humor. So I'd like to, you know, put it out there, and it's a rhetorical question, but how many, you know, high performing, let's say that we are high performers that we think we are, you know, how many high performing organizations around the world have a sense of humor as one of their prerequisites, right? And I think if you want to spend some time on that, you know, obviously every soldier around the world, it helps immensely to have a sense of humor, particularly a dark one. You know, dark humor is kind of like food. Not everyone gets it. But, you know, it's like too soon. So, you know, it's, a sense of humor. I thought I'd talk about that one because when the chips are down or when you're doing something that you know, super fucking hard, if I can speak eloquently, mate, what do you got left to lean on when you talk about resolve? I mentioned it earlier, you know, resilience, all this sort of shit, mate. Sense of humor. If you just think about, you know, this like classic example, this is just the introduction to our career in the regiment. We hadn't even sort of been overseas yet. And we're taking cover behind a tree and there's fucking rounds going everywhere. And this bloke's fucking, you know, he's cracking jokes and, you know, it's funny as shit. I don't think you'd find it in any other, it's a bit of a microcosm of society, but I think that sense of humor, it doesn't seem like much, but I think it adds a lot. It adds a lot of value.
Break down the seriousness of the situation. So
exactly right.
Process it at the time and then deal with it later.
Yeah, the gallows humor. It's a coping mechanism that a lot use to get through hard times or shitty situations, and just to make light of it and just laugh. And like you're sitting there like this, you're like, "Fuck, we almost died in a training accident." Fuck it, kind of funny now.
Just once that sentence is applicable. Like no shit. Our training, I'm like, there was.
So hardest one. Right, we're going on to that. Hardest.
The hardest.
Funniest and hardest.
What's the fucking?
What's the hardest shit we did?
Say the whole fucking thing.
Well, I guess like
there was a point there where it didn't stop, where I felt like, hey man, when are we getting off selection? Because I'm gonna be honest, it was like for the first few months, it didn't feel like we're off selection.
I reckon some of our training. So we do a jungle phase, right? And Australia geographically is obviously close to Papua New Guinea, which is basically as jungle as you can fucking get. And we head up there for 6 weeks to do our jungle training, and that's hard because it's a different type of hard. It's like it's physicality mixed with just suffering, mixed with, you know, because like if you you know, any soldiers listening, or if you don't understand, if you've never operated in the jungle, you know, you talk to any kind of special forces soldier, they'll say, you know, the catch cry in Australia is if you can operate in the jungle, you can operate anywhere, because it's such an unforgiving environment. You can't sleep on the ground. You got to sleep in hammocks. You get
full blown trench foot.
You know, you got fucking. You got in Papua New Guinea, man. Like one of the boys took a knee. You got these massive millipedes, and I'm talking they're like over a couple of feet long. They're fucking huge, and they're poisonous as shit. So one of the boys, you know, you got all these creepy crawlies on the ground. You got fucking massive spiders. You got how many snakes you seen in Papua New Guinea?
Dude, I remember even
that's before, a big fuck. No,
I remember
it's the Wild West.
I remember my bush training.
It's awesome.
And our team leader wouldn't let us use hoochies because he's like, no, we sleep basically on top of each other, next to each other. Another poster fucking.
We were.
Why we get naked? It was super weird. He does all this weird shit, man. I know. It's like, what's going on? So
don't worry, we like it nut to butt.
Don't worry about it.
Just close your eyes.
Just close your eyes. Cry.
Imagine someone else.
Mate, I'm a step ahead of you. Anyway, so I remember shivering for like 43 or 44 hours straight, but like with my teeth clacking. And I remember my instructor, it was in the rain in winter. It was like 0 degrees saturated. And we just had to sit there and move so slow. So there was no fast movement. Everything was like ninja pace. Like I'm talking like the only thing that can move quick is your eyes. Even then, they're not allowed to move that quick. They have to track. So everything's like, I'm talking legitimately the whole time that meticulously slow. And I just remember shivering for like through 43 or 44 hours straight. It's almost 2 days, just saturated in the rain, sleeping in the mud and whatnot. Wow. And in the rain, half submerged in a puddle. And I remember the instructor come up to me the next day. One of them was like, I couldn't fucking sleep last night because your teeth wouldn't shut the fuck up. And he just like whispers that to my ear, and he goes back to just saying nothing to me for the whole fucking day or anyone else. It's the only thing he said to anyone the whole day. I'm like, fuck my life. Oh, and then I went, and he's like, fucking make a coffee. He's like, make a coffee for the team. And it's like, you know, and it takes so long to make a fucking coffee at the speed at which they want you to move. But you've got to like, look, to be honest, I just ate a muesli bar a day when I was on my jungle or my patrol stuff out in the field, because like it would take so long to eat a muesli bar at the speed at which you're allowed to eat a muesli bar or eat food that I just eat one a day, and that's how I would sustain myself outfield. But I remember him like, make this, and he's like, you need to know how to do it, but it's not really, if you were doing these operations, it's not really practical. You just be like, no, I'm just not going to have anything heated. And I went to make it, and a rat had eaten through my fucking bag, my pack, and just taken all my fucking food and shit. And I'm like, and not even that, the rat had eaten the shit that you light, the hexy or whatever it is to make the fucking material. So not only did I not have coffee or food to make it, I didn't even have the shit to light a fucking fire. And I was just like, fucking my life, man. I'm like,
where you don't sound like you're you don't sound like you're operating on planet Earth. You sound like you're on a different fucking planet. Rats eating through like your bag and metal.
Is literally
that was before the fucking jungle. It's the point I wanted to make. It was before the jungle. It was in prep to go to the jungle and to eat shit there. So every night in the jungle, no hammocks, no nothing. I have to sleep on the jungle floor. And it was known as Rainy Lay. It's where the Japanese and Australians and whatnot in World War II got eaten alive. They just got fucking eaten alive. Like they couldn't survive there. It's known as Rainy Lay because it's always raining in the mountains. And every night I slept half submerged in a puddle of mud. And it was like every night. And then after, like, we're there for a couple of weeks. After like week 1, I had trench foot where the whole bottom sole of my foot had separated from the meat from the bone. Like it wasn't layers anymore. So every time I stood, the whole meat would slide. It would just tear it. Like it was fucking agonizing to step anywhere, and just had to like live like that for like several more weeks. And then at the end of it, they got us to trudge out to be undetected through the city and whatnot in the middle of the night by the locals or patrols for like 20 something kilometers. And they, you know, just as a test, as a final thing, it was like, fuck my life, man. Like, it was like, when am I getting off selection? Yeah. That's what I'm like, that was like what you're thinking the whole time.
And I guess experiences vary, right? Because my instructor, he was a bit more of a chilled out dude. So we're fucking sleeping in hammocks every night. I was getting a sweet sleep in the jungle. No scorpions crawling all over this guy. And then at the very end, we meet up as a call sign, like as a whole troop. Because at this stage, we're only operating as 5-man teams. And then we come together as a troop. And like, I remember seeing Nick and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these dudes, man? They look like fucking, you know, like, but anyway, his instructor he's a real strict dude. So we're fucking putting up hammocks and like getting a sick sleep, and they're looking at us like, what the fuck are these guys doing? And Nico's talking about this. We had like a 20-kilometer escape and evasion, Chuck. You asked us kind of earlier about that, and
yeah,
you know, so and Lay, like Papua New Guinea guys at night, man, it is the Wild West. It's like primitive as fuck, and they drink, and when they drink, man, they just go fucking crazy. I was more scared.
They do a local drug. Remember the local drug, beetle nut?
Beetle nut. They chew it.
But it's like, imagine a drug that everyone in the population is high on, like crack or whatever, like zombies. Only it grows on trees, so you don't even have to buy it. You can just step off the side of the road. Imagine a cocaine tree, and everyone just can crash cocaine and then go back to what they're doing or not doing for the next fucking 40 minutes, and then grab more and do it again.
Right, man, it is the Wild West. And so it's funny. I want to tell this because Nico's team commander was like, you know, they did their 20-kilometer exfil to get to the yacht club. We had to get to the yacht club, right? Our dude, we're like sneaking through the streets at night. Somehow in the middle of Lay, finds a fucking Papua New Guinean bottle shop, right? Buys a slab of beers, box of beers, and sits under this palm tree. And we've been in the jungle. It's like a 7-day patrol. And he's like, here, boys. Cracks it open.
It's like bend, some of these instructors, you know,
dudes
bend
are
the
just
rules.
necking
blokes.
Dudes are necking beers in the middle of the Papua New Guinean jungle. It's surreal, man. Surreal. And then, mate, we're sitting like in the shade of a tree. And I think there was a street light that was kind of projecting light onto one guy. So it looked like there was one guy there. But
with an assault rifle.
With an M4, right? No live rounds, we're all blanks. But our instructors had a magazine alive in case, just in case.
Not
And,
for animals, by the way.
And so in the space of 5 minutes, I legitimately felt more fearful of my life in Leh than I did most of the time in Afghanistan. It was fucking insane. It was like zombie land. So we see it. Remember, were you there?
It's like everyone's
there with
a
a
crack.
4-wheel drive.
A bunch of drug addicts.
Down and roll. Like some dude's driving a 4-wheel drive, a Hilux, drunk, and fucking clips a curb and it rolls right in front of us. And we're all sitting in the shade. You there for that? No. Then about 5 minutes later, this dude comes walking over with a bottle and goes, psh, smashes it. So it's like now a knife. And he's walking over toward what he thought was one guy
with an assault rifle, which is totally fine. You're like,
I don't think he didn't see one.
I'm still going to approach you with this fucking thing.
And the guy's drunk as shit, right? And man, when those guys, it's like they're on another planet. And two, didn't see the whole troop. This is like when we'd married up as a whole, there's 30 of us or whatever. And I can't remember who it was, one of the tech commanders, and he's like, hey guys, everyone, this is what's going on. And he just cocks his weapon, and this dude comes staggering over with a broken bottle, and he kind of like instantly just sobered up, dropped the bottle, and he's like, I think he gave like a thumbs up or something. He's like, no issues here, like, whatever, and walked up like, yeah, you got 8? No, you got 8. Dude, mate, it was a wall. It's that country's a wall. Where
dude,
awesome.
so like you got your crackhead scenarios in the US. So it's like the whole city at night and like day, the whole city is like that with crack plus alcohol to a point of obliteration, and it's fucking something else, man. But so we did that. Then we finished that. Then we went on to survival. It's like, hey, another 3 weeks of starvation. I'm like, it's great. I've been living on fucking muesli bars and trench foot for like in the rain and the mud for like several weeks. So or shivering my ass off leading up to it. So I'm like, yeah, cool. I'm malnourished, tired, and broken. And now we're just going to go on to 3 weeks without eating, trying to chase goats to their death every now and then so we can fucking survive. But we don't have the energy for that. Making fires in the desert. Like, I would have traded to go any of the food I ate just for a bottle of fucking water. Doing this, we go from the next thing to the next thing until finally we get to para course where it's just like, all right, you just got to get basic parachute qualifications. And it's like, they had these fitness tests to start it. And we couldn't. Yeah, we just the guy's supposed to be the fittest dudes in the fucking army, and we can't actually fucking. We're barely able to pass the test.
They're laughing at us.
The hardest thing.
They're literally laughing at us. They're like, "Aren't you guys like trainee special forces?" And we literally just come back from our survival course. They're like, I think it was like 30 or 40 push-ups, and dudes are fucking getting to 20, and they're like,
no one has like your bones. You've got no body mass anymore. We look like straight out of prisoner of war camps. We're just like fucking busted dudes going onto this. And then the parachute course was just don't break a leg because our bones are malnourished and shit at this point. Right. So it's all right, don't break a leg. And some dudes did. It didn't stop anyone, did it? But then the hardest thing we did was when we finished that, instead of like taking some time off to rest with our families, we went to fucking Thailand.
Yeah, we did.
And burnt it down. Because, we just go the extra mile. Always go on the extra mile, man. It's like, you know what? Fucking hard. How do we make this harder? 110%. Out every fucking night, putting the work in.
Don't worry about a can of beer. Let's have a bucket.
So, were you guys operating, doing training evolution in Thailand, or are you guys there for R&R?
Basically, we get to
self-deployed.
So because we finished selection halfway through the year, we do essentially 6 months of self-deployed. 6 months of training. We get a month off or whatever it was, and then another 6 months. So
that was like 2 weeks or something like that.
So instead of resting, so Nico and I. We're the two youngest dudes on our intake. So he was 21.
Not married.
I was 23. And, a lot of the dudes are sort of up around, like sort of late 20s, early 30s that they're married, a couple of kids. So, we were kind of, we were sort of, we had no ties. So, mate, we were straight to Thailand. And I think when we came back to training, exactly right. We come back to start our training again. We're straight in the roping course. And, mate, we were on thin ice. The instructors were like, what the fuck you two been doing? And we were frazzled, man.
Instead of resting, we just like gone straight into
it. We were just, man,
we came back, our brains could barely work. We're just like exhausted. Fucking just selection hadn't ended yet. Still.
It hadn't ended. But so the long way around, Chuck, to answer your question, what I reckon the hardest thing was, obviously the short answer is everything's hard. It's meant to be. We get that. But in terms of, I suppose the biggest course in the SAS or to become qualified is what we call TPC, or Target Prosecution Continuum, which is essentially where you learn to be an operator. All CQB, incorporating, learning to shoot with your primary weapon, going to your pistol, all your shooting, all your tactics.
Indoor, outdoor, jungle, bush, insertion, extraction, any kind of emergency or anything that could possibly arise, and like throwing in the whole intelligence package and
The hostage
strategy,
rescues,
tactics,
so
extra shit, like fucking everything.
It's a 3-month course
with like complete dynamics and everything involved, all thrown into one spectrum.
Yep. And it's probably the highest scrutinized course you can do. So it's not uncommon for, I'd say around 20 to 30% of trainees to be deemed not yet competent and to come back and do it the next time. So there's a lot of pressure. Obviously, as any high performing human, the most amount of scrutiny is from yourself, and that's
right.
Prevalent, throughout the whole program. Everyone's
so
under
is it
pressure.
Is it like that last phase portion? Is it physically demanding and mentally demanding, or more mentally than physically?
Look, it's both. I mean,
it's both.
It's both. So you get punishment
Twice.
sessions. So we fucked up today, guys. So we're going to run up the tower, back down.
Not even punishment sessions. It's like you're running around with body armor, full ammunition, everything. And I mean actually running. There's no getting in and out of a Humvee or a vehicle or anything. Like you're running up and down fucking towers and gas masks and running around shooting, clearing buildings, blowing shit up, high adrenaline, making decisions constantly that are like shooting past each other's heads and shit as you fucking clear rooms and shooting around each other. It's like extremely dynamic. Like you slip your attention for a moment, you may kill your fucking mate. And it's like, or at least shoot him. Like, but because you're aiming at the head, you're shooting at head level, probably shoot your dude mate in the face. So it's like, it's pretty extreme. And you might do that for like 18, 20, whatever hours a day. And you're like, 5 days a week. And it's like, they give you the weekends off because they're like, there's a point there where they like can get negligent if they got you working to that extreme every fucking day. So, but it's like, it's intense. It's pretty fucking intense.
I mean, and that's at the very end of your training evolution to graduate.
Yeah, well, it's probably the second last thing we got to do. The last thing we got to do is what we call insertion. So I mentioned earlier, you guys in America have got a whole bunch of different units that cover different, requirements. Where, we've got ourselves and our commando brothers, and we, so we'll do insertion training after that, which is essentially we'll be split into 3. There'll be guys that go do the water course. The guys that do the air, we call air or free fall, or the land stuff. So guys go and do the motorbikes, quad bikes, vehicles and stuff. So we pretty much, that's our last phase, and we're pretty well together in all of our training during that continuum, and then we split up at the end and do all that sort of stuff. So that's really the last thing. I think, did you break your leg?
You broke my leg on the free fall.
Yeah. So I went to water, right? And I swim like a set of car keys. So I got about halfway through the course and I was fucking on struggle street from day one. I was just, I went from being a redhead. Hey, Doc, picking up and putting down. I'm allergic to the sun, so I never used to go to the beach much. I never dived or anything, and I'm straight on this fucking dive course. Insane. Why did I choose that? I don't know. And we're doing night dives. We're doing, we're doing like 1,000 meter or whatever it is. I'll just turn this little bad boy. We'll get the fucking shit popping up on our screen. 1,000 meter swim to target to a ship at anchor, and I'm the dude navigating. I'm getting it wrong, and I'm just keep fucking up. And then halfway through the course, they're like, "Blue, you're just not keeping up, man." And I was kicked off the course,
and got red hair,
and I got red hair as well. So it's a disability basically, but it's and mate, and I say it's the best course I ever failed. And we talk about going back to our 10 pillars. What do you call them? 10, those things. One of them is humility, right? And it's like you talk to any fighter, any person that's got to kind of give their ego up to learn more. Man, you got to leave that thing at the door, because it's a hard pill to swallow when you fail. And I failed this night. Also, it's not uncommon, like I said, for dudes to fail courses because there's a standard, and it's not like anywhere else.
Even in the fucking unit, man, everyone's had their day where they get a humility check. We've got a thing in the unit called daily renewable contract. Doesn't matter what your history is, how long you've been around for, how great, whether you've got a Medal of Honor or whatever. You fuck up one moment, one day, you are done forever. You're gone. Right. You're out the next fucking day. Done. Daily renewable contract. So it's like, but there are lines where they're like, okay, It's a sizable fuck up. No one died, this and that, and they're like, they can see the reason behind it, and they're like, and then they'll be like, right, give us a justification why you think you should still be around. You get to argue your case. Obviously, there's cases where they're like, no, not even a fucking chance, which is the daily renewable contract. So it's like, but because they understand that every task given to us that we're doing like 10 a day, no matter what the fuck it is a, something of like either strategic level consequence or training to simulate strategic level consequence. It's like big decision making, right? So there is a bit of a fudge factor, but there's also a consequence where they can be like, and you're gone, from that moment. I mean, I went through and I watched the RT guys go through training in Quantico, whatever, going through over the top and whatnot. And I remember seeing them shoot a fucking, like several of them go through the serials in training and shoot like a hostage target. Now that they're going through training, so I'm not here to say that they're really fucking competent dudes. Like they were amazing. But like I was looking at that and I'm like, oh fuck, man, I feel sorry for those guys. Just like it's a very environment. But I didn't realize they got to stay on. I saw they got to stay on. I'm like, yeah, guys, right, just you saw you did that. And I'm like, in our unit, it's like, and you're gone, and you're done. Thanks for coming.
Right.
Thanks for your 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, whatever.
Yeah,
so the moment that you start your competency starts to kind of come a little bit down, you're not as on your A game. They just boot you from the unit. And they're like, okay, no more.
I mean, they're not as. It's like, it sounds ruthless, but it's like, there's different scenarios to measure it, right? Like if you come across this flimsy paper target and it wasn't lit well, or it didn't have anything that would indicate it in any fashion, and it's like, all right, it's a paper knife on a fucking paper target doing a nighttime serial of a hostage rescue or something like that. You're like, okay, you're in the shit list pretty bad, and you're going to be watched like a hawk for maybe several months.
Right.
It's like, but if it's clear as day that there was no weapon on them or whatever, or something like that, it's like, and the target's clear, it's like, hey man, you're bad, you're done. So it's not like, it's not 100% ruthless black and white. There is a bit of consideration for it, but it's like, it's pretty, and it's not, and what I'm getting to here is everyone's kind of taking their turn of a humility check.
Right.
Absolutely.
In some capacity.
Absolutely, mate. Everyone's, I was saying, like, everyone's got one, colossal fuck up in them, and hopefully when it's your turn, no one dies and no one gets injured, and it's kind of, you're embarrassed and you look like a dickhead, and everyone can learn from it, and then you move on. But everyone's got one big fuck up in them, no one's immune, no one's the perfect.
And that's how you learn how you're not going to do it again. And I think a lot of people might be listening like, damn, that's kind of harsh, being in like a unit like that and you fuck up. You've been there for however many years and you fuck up one time and you're done. But we also have to remember that
one fucking goat, and you're the goat fucker forever.
But that was voluntary.
Oh, that was voluntary. Yeah.
But people have to remember that these guys are the tip of the spear for like Australia. Like these are special forces dudes, so they have to be perfect 100% of the time, because if they don't, people die.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, and particularly when you're training, like if you said to me, what would you take the most serious in your job? For me, it was hostage rescue, right? Like we are, the Australian SAS is the Australian government's contingency plan. We're up on the shelf with that little glass case, break in case of emergency. So if politicians need to use us to, extend.
We're the last resort. There are diplomatic options, all this shit's off the table.
Right.
It's a bit of an emergency.
So if we're going in to say do a hostage rescue for an Australian citizen around the world, that's why you train, back to back.
Right.
Train for hour. That's why you become competent, because the government need to know that they can use you, at their discretion. So
and you need to know, like, one of my biggest things that I think separate our unit from like, the rest of the lads was 1%ers. We took 1%ers to heart, and we were just so much more consciously present, even though being conscious is more tactile, right? We know that it uses more brain energy. I'm physically more tired if I have to be conscious. If I'm learning another language and I'm speaking that language, I have to be conscious to think about it. I'm fucking exhausted at the end of the day speaking consciously in another language when I'm learning. Same thing goes for this. So we're so much more fucking conscious, but it doesn't matter how conscious you are, you still make errors. And I would find 1%ers were the thing that we took to heart, and we just, no matter what they were, we knew if you fucked up, if you gave an inch on a 1%, error or did it again, you were opening the door for a 10% error, and before you know, a colossal fuck up. And it's like, you might have a colossal fuck up where it kind of, no one dies. It's not significant. It has a sort of state level incident, because the shit we're touching is like, yeah, we might cause a state level incident if we fuck up, but it's like, it's big to us, but not catastrophic to the world, right? At that point. And we take it really to heart, and we're like, no, it's our job to not make those, to be the scalpel, to make that perfect cut and removal of shit. So 1%ers were a big thing to us to not make that. So we were our own worst critic if you did.
Absolutely.
Everyone else might look at you, you might have shame, you might be a bit sheepish, but you would take it further to heart than anyone else. So,
and I think just on that, you talk about, a special forces unit, like you're a strategic level asset, right? Even as a private soldier, the lowest rank in our unit was a trooper. So even as a trooper, and this became particularly evident on operations down the track, right?
Right.
You're doing some sensitive work or whatever your role is, mate. If you fuck it up, like you're talking about some like strategic level, some government level sort of, you're going to upset the apple cart. It's going to make headlines in your country if you fuck it up, like.
And that's something that
potentially, right? No, well, exactly right. So reverse engineering it back from those headlines, so to speak. Like Nico was saying, everything that you're doing, it's particularly, let's say, it was a hostage rescue, or if you're doing sort of other sensitive work that requires a bit more thinking, or it's a bit sort of unorthodox. Like that's the reason. I guess going back to all the training we've spoken about, like that's the reason you train at that level. So you can. You're a strategic level asset. So
right.
But and you kind of don't know what you put it all together as you go. So yeah, super interesting.
Yeah, and it sounds like your selection process is very difficult and very methodically thought out, and just it's wild. And you guys kind of both had different experiences while going through it. And I you had one good, like, cool instructor, and the other one was like, you're sleeping in puddles, and whereas Nico's freaking foot sloughed off and you were sleeping in a hammock.
We're smoking cigars in the junk. No, not cool.
And then did you guys end up going on to the same actual unit to operate in? Once like what we would call the fleet.
Crazy. Actually, we left the reinforcement cycle and ended in the same squadron and same troop in that squadron.
So Nico and I, we lived together, right? I mentioned we're the two youngest dudes. So we hired a place in like Perth in Australia, where we're based, right? So we
basically took the Beverly Hills equivalent.
Mate, we were living in this fucking 3-story mini mansion, just two of us. We had nothing in the fridge, like just alcohol. We were playing Guitar Hero. I remember we had a cleaner, right? This poor woman's like vacuuming the carpet, and Nico's there, like hungover, playing Guitar Hero, and she's trying to vacuum under his legs, and he doesn't even lift his legs. And she's like vacuuming around him, man. Like, we just living way outside our means, just like living like fucking rock stars, We just thought we were killing it.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause you right there.
Yep, send it.
Because as we're getting closer to the end of this episode, this is gonna be part 1. Come back for part 2 when we hear them talk about maids cleaning up under some passed out dude, and what it's like to live with one another and operate with one another. So we're going to get back into that very soon in part 2. So come back next week. But as we get ready to close this,
all right,
this episode out, stand by.
Well,
I can't find it. But as we get ready to close this out, I just want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the content and the podcast, please help us out by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever platform you listen to us on. You can also go to our Instagram at @war_stories_official and our Facebook at War Stories Podcast. Click the link in the bio. You can get to all of our socials and our media. You can also support us by going to www.warstoriesofficial.com and grab some gear. And if you want to be featured on the show, you think you have a friend who would be a great fit, please go to booking.warstories@gmail.com and I can get you booked. We're always looking for veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, medics, but also corrections, dispatchers, and nurses. I just want to say thank you for the support and stay safe. Um,
Nice.
Doc, do you have anything to tell anyone?
Nah, I'm good right now.
Do you guys have any closing for the fans? Anything
Well,
you
we're
wanna
going
say?
again. Yeah, stay tuned. Episode 2.
Yeah.
All
right.
We're only getting started. We're Nico's third beer. I'm about half a bottle of wine, and we're just getting comfortable. So
It's white wine, so it doesn't count.
that's right. Yeah.
Juice.
But thank you everyone. Just remember, come home with your shield or on it.